I have
No.
multiple private lenders where we borrow the same 300 grand over again. They're getting a return and you're getting to use that money again and again. And once you've established that, then it's like clockwork. They can't wait to lend to you and you can't wait to find another deal.
Well, we have a guest here with us, guys. I'm going to go ahead and add Nick in. Nick, how are you?
Doing great, Jerry. How are you doing, man?
Good, good. Nice to meet you. Excited to talk with you for a minute. You're on a weekly Zoom I do with my fast track group. So we've got, I don't know, 20 or so people in so far. And when we're done talking, we'll go ahead and open up to some Q&A if that's okay.
Absolutely.
But Nick, I'm excited to get to meet you. I'm excited for the topic that we're going to be covering. We're going to actually break down a creative finance deal that you did that was a wrap. And this is a fairly advanced strategy for most people. So everybody listening right now, if you're hyper focused on getting your first deal, I highly recommend you keep that tunnel vision, focus on a low cash offer with an assignment to a cash buyer. There's a whole lot less moving parts. You're not going to own the property, take title. You don't have to figure out all these different moving parts and the nuance of creative finance. But I think this is very important to talk about because this is one more tool in your tool belt. And when you're ready, you can start to think outside the box a little bit. And once you're able to branch outside of just traditional low cash and assignment type of deals, and you can start to dive into the world of creative, as you'll find out when you start to do this, you'll open up an entire new world of opportunity. And so I do think it's very important. I do think it's very relevant. Creative is something that I specialize in and do a lot of. A lot of the deals I do are creative finance. A lot of the wholesale deals I do are creative finance, meaning I structure the deal as a creative finance deal, but then I just assign that deal to another investor and they step in and take over the deal. So it doesn't necessarily mean that once you start doing creative, you have to then take those deals on and become an operator and hold the asset. You can structure a creative deal and then still wholesale it. So that's pretty cool too. But Nick, I'm excited to talk to you because this was really cool what you did here on this deal. And I think it'll just help people see a little bit of a big picture. So we're going to talk about it, but I might stop you and break it down because what I try to do is make it kindergarten, for someone that might be listening to this, if it starts to get a little too advanced. But let's start with you, Nick. First, tell us a little bit about you, when you got started, and maybe your journey from brand new to first deal, and we'll kind of go from there.
All right. So my name's Nick Disney. I'm a single family real estate investor based in San Antonio, Texas. I'm about 15 years in and I'm an open book. So if I can add value or answer a question for you, I'm happy to do that. So please don't hesitate. Just send it. But I started, it took me a while to get my first deal, mostly because I had no idea what I was doing and I fumbled through. And that was 15 years ago. And I'm really glad that I did not quit. And we've come out on the other side. We do almost only all single family real estate. We have portfolio rentals. Our specialty is owner finance, where we'll sell the property and we'll take a down payment and payments. But obviously along the way, we've done a lot of flips and wholesales. So I think all those pieces are really good tools when you're ready to have them so that you can use them just to help build your portfolio, help build your business. Knowing what's available can really help propel you forward.
Yeah. And when you talk about selling on owner finance, most of the time we think of buying on owner finance. Like as investors, we're always thinking about acquisition strategies. And then what most people think is they think, okay, I'll acquire it with creative finance to hold it long term as an operator or as a long-term rental, short-term rental, sometimes flip. But what you're talking about is you acquire these properties, but then you sell them with owner financing. Now, guys, I want you to think about this. The idea here would be buy it with owner financing, turn around and sell with owner financing. And hopefully what you're selling it for, the terms and the price are much higher than what you bought it for with seller financing. And so what you're doing is you're creating a spread there between your acquisition and your resell of it. And you said something really relevant here too. You said San Antonio, and I think of the entire US, San Antonio is probably the best market for selling on wrap or owner finance because you have a large population of Hispanics there who are income earners, but maybe don't have credit, maybe don't have credit history, maybe don't have tax returns to show financials. They
Mhm.
can't really get traditional financing, but they're great income earners and they've got some cash even for down payments. And so it ends up being a really, really awesome model in your market. Now, having said that, I don't think that that's a blanket statement across all markets. I think there's other markets where selling on owner financing might have more challenges, there might not be as many opportunities for that as there are like in San Antonio, for example.
I think you're spot on. Our entire 99% of our business here in San Antonio. So we focus there. The majority of the houses where we've seen the most success in the properties we're selling owner finance, we try to sell our properties at 200,000 and below because it gives us room to have an interest rate that's fair, but is a little bit
Mhm.
higher. And we have a large pool of buyers who want that. And to your point earlier, we have a lot of people who make a lot of money, but they are not bankable. So we will still run credit and we have to process them through the RMLO, but their credit score very well may come back NA. It's not that they've done anything bad. They just have literally no credit card, no truck payment.
Yeah.
They just have cash.
Do you know Mitch Steven?
I do. I do. I don't
Yeah.
know him well. He actually helped me. I called him and he took my call years ago when he really shouldn't have. And he gave me some really good advice. And so he's been around San Antonio and doing owner finance a long time.
Yeah, I read his book, A Thousand
Me
Houses,
too.
something years ago when I first got started. Fascinating read, but he does exactly what you're doing in San Antonio.
Hmm.
And I've met him. He's a great guy. Okay, so let's kind of start back from the beginning here. Because you've got such a long-standing track record and you've been
Hmm.
doing this a long time, I think let's move a little bit away from like a deal. Maybe no. Let's still do the deal that you told me about because I
Hmm.
like that as an example. Let's use it as a case study, but let's help people kind of see how a wrap might work. And let's start first with the acquisition side. And then we'll talk about, then the exit side. So first of all, are you buying all of your wraps with creative finance or do you buy some with traditional cash on the purchase side?
We buy almost all of ours with private money on the
Okay.
purchase side.
Perfect.
So it will act as cash. I definitely think for most people, until you have a pool and a track record of private lenders, that the route that you're talking about buying it, creative finance, is probably what's going to be the quickest path to success for a lot of people. Where I really like this example of what we did here with the private lender is because I have heard it, I hear it once a week, though. Well, no private lender is going to give you terms like that. And I'm just telling you, I've done it several hundred times. So they will. You just didn't ask
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah, or yeah, you just didn't know how to structure it either.
Hmm.
Like I'm a flipper, so most of my PML, it's quick turn, high interest. The
Yep.
exit's very clear, very easy. So I can have that conversation. Like I have private money lender Zoom calls set up on my calendar every week, all the time, right? Because I got to sort of walk them through it. I got to make them feel comfortable. There's probably people on this call right now that lend to me, but
Hmm.
the pitch is very simple for me because it's like, hey, I'm going to pay you a really awesome rate because I'm going to get in and out of this deal in 90 days or 4 or 5, 6 months. And here's why, and here's how you're going to get your money back. The conversation you're having is much different. You're telling people, hey, let's park your money in an asset that's got equity, but we're going to leave your money sitting here for a long time, probably.
Yep.
So how's that conversation differ?
So it's a little different in this. So we still have to give them a good interest rate and a good return on their money, and they want a good loan to value so that
Mm-hmm.
they're protected. But the conversation, instead of like where Jerry's having, hey, I can pay this high interest rate, we're going to be in and out really quick. Ours is a little different. It's more along the lines of, okay, hey, would you like to earn this return? And would you like me to pay you that every single month for, say, 36 or 60 months? It's set. I'm going to make that payment to you. And it's maybe not the first deal with most private lenders, but after you
Yeah.
have a track record with them. And we use it in order to, just get rid of some of the zeros because not everybody has the ability to keep their money out. And so they lend it and then they get it back for a couple of months. And so there's a bit of a change. So we'll kind of approach it that way.
Do you do you amortize it or is it interest only with a balloon or how do you typically do those?
We'll typically do it interest only,
Yeah.
right? And because also as the operator, it gives us more of a delta, more of a spread in there if we do
Yeah.
interest only. And
Yeah.
so, and
Do you guys understand that? Do you guys catch that? So interest only means you're not paying any principal down in that monthly payment. So the payment's smaller because it's only getting applied towards interest. And the reason why Nick likes that is because he's focusing on the cash flow
Mhm.
from, what he's paying to his PML to what he's collecting from his buyer. And so you're not really thinking like, okay, I'm going to slowly pay down my loan with an amortized 30-year loan. No, these are private money lenders. They're probably going to want to see their money back in 3 to 5 years. And so I imagine, Nick, you're sort of rolling PMLs all over the place, right? You're paying this one off, taking their money, putting it over on this deal. It's probably quite a process going on.
It's quite a process. We develop it over time, and he's exactly right. Right. If we create more cash flow, then we can choose what we're going to do with that. And so, if you have several of these, you wouldn't pay down a little bit of principal on each one. You would
Yeah.
bring it together and just pay off, this one guy. Where that is similar to creative finance, where would give some of y'all a way into owner finance and creating your own long-term notes at the beginning is you don't have to have all that capital. You're just going to have to pay somebody for theirs and somebody that trusts you to run the deal.
Yeah. And what's cool about this, guys, is Nick, tell me how many of these deals you're doing like this, but if you're having the right conversations with the right PML, then you can borrow if the deal makes sense and you can show somebody this is a good deal. There's equity here. You're protected by the asset in a lien position. You can raise all of the money for the deal. So you're not out of pocket any money in the deal. Now, you can't do that with traditional finance. They're going to want you to have 25, 30% down. Even most creative finance deals, there's an entry fee where you got to come up with some money. Now you can still borrow PML, but Nick, how many of your deals on the acquisition side using PML are you doing 100% of that acquisition?
Pretty much all of them, unless the private money lender, like, sometimes you have a guy and he's lent you most. He's like, hey, I've got another 60. Can you use it? But you got a deal and it's 70. So you use it anyway, just to make them happy. But no, typically we can borrow the whole thing. And there's some ways that you guys could structure those, especially if you can borrow the whole thing, as the deal plays out where you can see a lot of advantage.
How many of your PMLs are self-directed IRA lenders?
A lot. It's just a great spot for them. If you guys aren't meeting people that have self-directed IRAs or around that, I would suggest start to build those relationships because a lot of those people will be more than happy. And it's a win-win. You really are helping them build their retirement.
Yeah, I just talked to a PML. Get this, Nick. I talked to a PML today. She's got 300,000 with Fidelity in her IRA through her job or whatever. Now she's looking at like how much she can take out and all of that. But she said that Fidelity just came out with their 10-year predictions of having a 3% return over the next 10 years. Fidelity is predicting a 3% return. And so she's talking to me like, I can't do 3%. I'm like, no, you can't do 3%. Like it would be irresponsible of you to leave your money with Fidelity. You just can't do that. Like you got to find a better way. So yeah. So you can have those conversations with people and people have, I think about it this way, guys. Think about it like this. Anybody who's working or has worked in corporate America for 10 years or longer has a minimum of $25,000 probably in an IRA, all the way up to a couple $100,000 in an IRA. You have the right conversation with them about self-directing that and then lending it out. They're signing up for deals. Like they want to lend in better avenues.
They want to lend in better avenues. And I think what goes right along with what he just said, a lot of people, when they're thinking about raising private money or using private money, you think you have to go find this guy with millions of dollars to lend to you.
Yeah.
You don't. I have multiple private lenders where we borrow the same 300 grand over and over again. They're getting a return and you're getting to use that money again and again. And once you've established that, then it's like clockwork. They can't wait to lend to you and you can't wait to find another deal. You just need, for most people, depending on your deal volume, a handful of those people and you can really start to scale.
Yeah. So that's awesome. So guys, the key to this, Nick's business would not function without the lenders that are financing his deals. And Nick, I did a presentation here a couple of weeks ago. I put it on my YouTube channel, part of it. And in that presentation, I talked about how the lender is at the top of the food chain. And what I talked about there was like the end game for me, it's not flipping or even owning and operating assets. It's to become the lender. The lender is the one that, of all of us, between finders and operators, the lender is the one that is in the best spot of all because their money's making them money, not their time and effort. And their money makes money regardless of what the asset does, meaning the lender doesn't get the call in the middle of the night that the toilet backed up, right? The lender doesn't get that call.
Write
Nick
that
gets
down,
that
guys.
call. I get that call, not the lender.
We get that call and it's but it's one of the biggest reasons why we like owner finance so much as our exit strategy. And we can, however much you want to go into owner finance, I'm happy to do it, but it goes right with what he's saying. I like long-term promissory notes for myself, and long-term payments. Somebody wants to give me a payment every month for 30 years that I don't have to mess with. I have zero
Yeah.
problems with this.
Yeah, great. Okay, so you acquire this property.
Yep.
What type of loan to value do you try to stay at, equity spread on your deals? Do you have a rule of thumb that you follow?
I mean, no, but like
Depends.
we're not going to be, we are actively marketing for our own deals. So unless it's super clean, we're never going to be more than 75,
Yeah,
cents in, right? We can pretty much find 70 now
yeah.
because there's not as much people buying. Unless it's just super clean, like it's going to be really, really fast, then we're not going to go outside of those numbers. We don't need to.
And what's your typical purchase size, like all in acquisition size? Price point.
120,000, 120,000.
120,000. Okay. So you're staying definitely on the lower end.
Yep.
So 120,000, you're trying to be all in around 85, maybe
Mhm.
90 on a property like that. Okay. And that's a great position. It's easy to tell a private money lender, hey, we're all in on this deal for 85. It's worth 120. There's some spread there. If I get hit, this is what I say, Nick. If I get hit by a bus and you have to sell the asset, there's plenty of room for you to fire sale it and get all your money back.
Mhm.
I don't say default because that sounds horrible. I say
Right.
hit by a bus, right?
Yeah, because we don't default. I don't
No,
default. You
I
don't
don't. I've
default.
never defaulted. Yeah.
Uh-uh.
No, I tell my PMLs, every single one of them on my calls, I say, look, I wish I could sit here and say in 20 years, I've never struck out. I've never lost money on a deal. It's not true. I've lost money on deals, but I've always, every single time, not once have I not paid back my investors. I always pay back my investors because it's not your 25,000 or 100,000. It's not that. It's that money again and again and again for years to come. Like I look at that as such valuable piece of the business that I'll lose whatever I'll lose on a deal. I'm always paying back that investor.
Mhm.
So anyway, okay, so that's great. So you're at about 120,000. You try to stay about 70% in on the deal.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
use private money to acquire these deals. Now, once you've got the deal, let's say you have to do a little bit of value add to get it ready. You have a note now with a PML.
Right.
This is guys where you got to get your head around this. So Nick creates a note, let's call it a loan. He creates a loan with a PML on the front end of it. So when he buys the deal, but then he's going to turn around and instead of renting it, he's going to sell it to a new buyer. And this is someone who is tired of paying rent. They want to own the property. They want to call it their own. They've got a little bit of cash. They're willing to put some money down typically. And so then what Nick does is he says, okay, I'm going to sell you this property, but I know you can't go get traditional financing. Like I understand that. So I'll owner finance it for you. So now talk about that, Nick. I mean, we could go in a little bit like how you market and find these buyers, but what's the opportunity there? Why buy it with private money and then sell it on owner financing? And then I want to talk about what a wrap is and how what you're doing is you're basically creating a sandwich, we call it,
Mhm.
around those two separate
Yep.
deals there.
Okay. So perfect. Our goal is long-term cash flow. So that's what I want to create, right? I want long-term cash flow. And so how can I do that? Well, you could rent the properties out. But here, instead of that, what we're going to do is say we've bought it and for easy numbers, let's say we're 100,000 all in. All right. And Jerry's my private money lender. So I've got to pay him because I agreed. So I'm paying him, but we've done a value add, et cetera. So let's say I sold it for 150 and it's probably going to be a little higher interest rate than what I'm paying Jerry. But what you have is also I'm paying off 100 and they're paying me off 150. So there's a spread here. Right. So that's cash flow that we're creating where the person that's buying on the end, there's a big misconception like, oh, these people must have terrible credit and they've been repoed and foreclosed and all this other thing. And I'm telling you, you can, if you want to own or finance those guys, I recommend against it. There's a lot of good, hardworking contractors, business owners, restaurant owners, all these people who cannot go to Wells Fargo, but they make a lot of money and they've saved up a lot of money. And we typically get larger down payments than most other people, but we'll usually get somewhere between 20 and 30,000 down. And so we've got someone who is disciplined enough to save that much money, put that much money down, and all they want to do is they rented their whole life. Now they just want to own their own piece, of the American dream. So we provide.
And you get 25 to 30% down.
Yeah, it's usually 20 to 30,000 total down because our typical
20 to 30,000. Okay. But that's about 25% down.
Sometimes it is.
On most deals. Yeah.
We got 40, 50 down sometimes. And you're
Yeah.
like, what is it? You would not even suspect it. But
Yeah.
also, our typical owner finance buyer is dual income, right? So there's two incomes in there. They have very little debt. We have many that we're their only fixed debt is their payment to us, no credit cards. They paid cash for their vehicles. It's how they live their life.
Yeah.
They are not going to Wells Fargo and ever going to get a loan. Not because they're not
Yeah.
good people. They just don't fit the model. They're never going to get a
Yeah.
loan. But I'm telling you from experience, these people are happy to own the house and they will pay every single month. And you can really start to create cash flow. And then the second part of that is if you do a long-term note and you will use their cash flow plus other things to say pay, our private lender off, what you can create for yourself. Let's just say Jerry gave me the money for 5 years and I sold it on a 30. If I pay him off in 5, say I wholesale some houses, flip some houses, whatever I did to pay him off, right? Paid him off. I have 25 years of payments that come to me
Yeah. On the other end.
on
Yeah.
the other end.
Like that was your
You-
example. So you
Uh-huh.
you did a deal for 50,000.
Yep.
You borrowed PML for 50,000. So you're in the
Mhm.
deal for 50, sold it for 100,
Mhm.
but then you paid off the PML on the 50.
Mhm.
You flipped a couple of houses, whatever. You paid them
Yep.
off.
Exactly
You
what
didn't
happened.
replace them with new PML. You just paid them off.
Yep.
So now you own the asset free and clear,
Mhm.
but your buyer bought it on a long-term 30-year note for 100.
Mhm.
So you're collecting a payment on 100 grand on an asset you own free and clear for the next 25 years or however long is left on the note.
Exactly right. You only need a handful of those, depending on what your numbers are. Everybody's is different, but a
Yeah.
handful of those can really be a game changer. That was a few years ago. Our typical note now is 150,000 at 10.9%, which is 1,400 like $11 a month on a 30-year. How many $1,400 payments do you need for the next 25 to 30 years to really change your life? And so, does the buyer pay principal on their loan? Yes.
Yeah. It's
So,
amortized.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
So we're gonna set them up with a standard mortgage that would be built out just like if you went to the bank and got a loan for your own home. And there's a lot of rules that you want to follow and do everything the right way, but they're going to pay us principal and interest.
And guys, what Nick was saying there about a type of buyer that does not want to use traditional finance, I just want to reiterate this because it's not bad credit, bankruptcy, it's not all of that. This is just people who don't fit the round peg in the round hole.
Mhm.
And this is at all levels. I mean, guys, I sold my house in Mesa to Pace Morby on creative finance. Pace Morby, right? One of the biggest investors. Now, Pace probably could have wrote the check or whatever. He could have probably went and got a bank loan. Did not want to. He did not want to do a bank loan. Him and I came to terms. We came to an agreement. There was no credit check. There was no underwriting. There was no tax returns. There was nothing. And he bought my house on creative finance, right? I wrapped it to him, right? And for a lot more than I bought it for. And so it just was the convenience of it. And for him, lots of different reasons, I guess. But this is at all levels. Like this is multi-million-dollar people all the way down to, people that don't even speak English that are the labor force and everywhere in between. Okay. So you've got to get your head away from this idea that most people use traditional finance to do real estate. There's a huge segment of the market that doesn't. Okay. Okay, awesome. So let's talk now about the wrap structure, because this is where a
Yep.
lot of people get way thrown off here. If you guys think about it, let's use your example of 50 and 100.
Okay.
Nick acquired a property for 50,000, used PML. And let's just say that PML is getting 8%. I don't know if that's typical, 7, 8%. I don't know if Nick.
I mean, typically we're paying 10, we're
Okay.
paying 10.
Okay, 10.
Yeah.
Let's say 10 then. Okay,
But it
so
depends. Yeah. Mhm.
now you're paying an interest-only payment
Right.
on 50,000 at 10%. Okay. So
Mhm.
you have that, and that's a recorded lien now because
Yep.
that investor wants protected. So their first
Yes.
lien position on the property. Well, how in the world does Nick resell the property with owner financing to a new buyer for 100,000? He could do it in two different ways. He could say, okay, well, buyer, we're going to have two loans. One loan is for 50,000 at 10%. That washes mine. So basically you're going to be paying my loan that I have with my PML. But since I sold it to you for 100, let's make a second note for 50,000 to get to 100, right? And then we're going to do 12% on, or 10.99 or whatever on that one. And now you make two payments. Well, first of all, that's super confusing for your buyer because he's got two different loan payments and you're missing any upside on the first 50,000 that you have. So instead, what you're going to do is you're going to take a new loan with that borrower for 100 and you're just gonna, that's why they call it a wrap. You're gonna wrap it all into one loan. So now your borrower is going to make one loan for 100,000, even though Nick has his loan for 50,000 at 10%. Now he's collecting 100,000 at 11%, let's
Mhm.
say. And the spread between 100,000 at 11 and 50,000 at 10 is, I don't even know, probably a couple $100, $300-400 or whatever it is. We could do the math real quick, but see, there's a spread there between those two. Did I miss
There's a
anything there,
spread.
Nick? Did that make sense?
I think it made great sense. I would look back at Jerry's earlier point of always taking care of your lenders. And so there are people, for me, if my private money lender lent me the money, I am making that payment to him, right? I don't want someone else trying to pass through the payment or have it go through a servicer and they promise to pay, because on any scale or sometime there'll be a hiccup and they won't get paid. But I want my guy to say, Nick always pays me. No matter what, Nick pays me, he pays me, right? So I'm always going to control that payment. So we'll take this payment and we make sure that, the private money lender's payment. So I would recommend that you do it that way. Because that way you make sure you're always protecting them.
Yeah, I
And
just did the math, Nick. So 50,000 at 10% interest only is around $400
mhm,
ish a month. 100,000 at 11%. Now, if I don't amortize it, if I just do interest only, is around 900 and some dollars a month. You can see there's a $500 spread between the one and the other
yep.
in that case. Now, it's not quite that because you're amortizing this buyer's loan, meaning they're paying principal and interest. But still, you get the idea there that you're making the spread between your first loan with the PML and what you resell it for to the end buyer, and that's the cash flow. So it's not cash flow in the sense of rental income, it's cash flow in the sense of two different notes, one at a lower amount, one at a higher amount. I know you mentioned it a minute ago. What's different about this than buy and hold and rental revenue is they're the buyer. So when the screen door gets broken, they're not calling you. When it needs a new furnace, they're not calling you. When it needs painted again, they're not calling you. They own that property. You're just the bank now. You are literally the bank.
You are the bank. When things break, the roof needs to be replaced, the toilet's broken, they need the AC. I mean, I'm in Texas, our property taxes are aggressive here we
Yep.
have rentals and they definitely have their place, right? And they do good things, but I get a very large tax bill from the county for all the rental properties. That's not our responsibility on the house. The other part is it's very predictable. You, me, or anybody else can't tell you when the AC is going to go out on my rental. I can't tell
Yeah.
you. But if it does, it's $7,000 or whatever it costs. With the mortgage payment, it's very predictable what is coming in because it's written down. There's documents. This is what you pay me. And so from those aspects, it becomes predictable and scalable, which are a couple of things that I really like about it.
Yeah, love that. That's awesome. And Joy brought up another good point in the comments. She said there are a lot of self-employed people who they write off everything they can. If you think about car wash owners, laundromat, mobile home owners, they collect cash. So those businesses show no income every year. Hey, we didn't make any money again. Dang it. And so they're not bankable, I call it.
Mhm.
And meaning if you look at their tax returns, they're showing that they haven't made any money, so they don't have to pay any taxes. Well, that's a double-edged sword. It also means you can't get any financing on stuff because you're not showing any income. So you have a lot of people like that too. Those people make great owner finance buyers because they have cash, they have money, they want to buy, they want to own, but they can't go get a traditional loan. So great point, Joy.
Mhm.
Okay, guys, let's Nick, is there anything else maybe you want to add to this before
I
we
think
open
people
up
that are
to
going into
Q&A?
wraps, just whatever the rules are where you're investing, make sure that you follow them. There's going to probably be additional disclosures, to your end buyer, but I've never had it be a hiccup. You just literally tell them exactly what you're going to do and how it works, and what there is for them to protect you and protect everybody else. So there probably is some, learn the rules, get around somebody that's done in your area or whatever your system is, and make sure you follow them. That way you can, build your business the right way.
Are you following any of the Texas regulation they're trying to pass on seller finance?
So I am,
Okay,
and I wrote my letter and,
good.
it's for those of you that don't know, there's a big seller finance market just in Texas in general, bigger than
Yeah.
some other places in the U.S. And so
It's
they
something like
definitely,
a quarter of all real estate's like seller finance. It's a lot.
it's a
Yeah.
lot. And so the different institutions that have a lot of pull in different areas would rather everything have to go through a bank. The issue I have with that is there's a very I really really believe that there's a place for doing owner finance, doing it the right way, and we help a lot of people own a home. And I can show you photos after photos after photos of them that would never ever be able to own a home unless they saved all the money cash or we sold them one.
Yeah.
And so I do definitely think that I mean, we make good money, but I really do feel good about what we do and getting these people a house that they can live in. So,
Yeah, just if you guys don't know, what they're doing is Texas is exploring regulation that would prevent basically owner operators from selling on seller financing without going through traditional licensing that would basically limit it to banks. So the attempt would be to stop guys like Nick from doing it. And so it's sort of like what's happening with the hotel industry and Airbnb. So, you got a bunch of owner operators like Nick and Mitch Stevens, who wrote that book, 1,000 Houses, guys like me and Nick and people running around, just like owner operators that do Airbnb. There is no industry of Airbnb. It's a bunch of single owners. Well, the hotel industry is massive and they have billions of dollars in lobbying power. And what they're doing is they're going into municipalities and they're getting the government to stop Airbnb to force you to go to the hotel, even though that's not what you want. Like when I travel, I do not want a hotel. I got too many kids. I need a house, right? Well, the same thing is what they're trying to do with regulation in a place like Texas. So it's just big lobbying power trying to stop the little guy from doing their thing. And I'm really good friends with Jeff Watson, who's leading this, like he calls it a coalition, but it's basically trying to get a lot of awareness to people in power that this is a bad move and it's not good for people. It's not good for investing. It's not good for the economy. It's just not good for anybody to take that away. So anyway, that's the kind of a little bit on that. I'm keeping an eye on it too. So if things transpire, I'll do some content around that. But Nick, that's awesome that you're out there, doing that and providing opportunity for families that wouldn't be able to. I mean, it's really cool.
yeah, thanks, man.
Awesome. Great call, everybody. Super proud of you guys. Keep up the hard work.